Welcome to another episode of The Good Listening To Show, your life and times with me, Chris Grimes, the storytelling show that features The Clearing, where all good questions come to get asked and all good stories come to be told. And where all my guests have two things in common. They're all creative individuals and all with an interesting story to tell. There are some lovely storytelling metaphors, a clearing, a tree, a juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, some alchemy, some gold, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare and a cake. So it's all to play for. So yes, welcome to The Good Listening To Show, your life and times with me, Chris Grimes. Are you sitting comfortably? Then we shall begin. So, hello, I'm Chris Grimes and welcome to another very exciting episode of The Good Listening To Show, Stories of Distinction and Genius. And today it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Montana Hoeron, who's from Hornby Hobbies Limited. She's actually head of brand at Hornby Hobbies, and she's going to be talking to us today very excitingly and brought to you by the word Ferroequinologist. Woohoo! She's going to be talking about the second series of a wonderful TV series coming up called Hornby, A Model World. So the second series of this popular TV show takes viewers behind the scenes at Hornby, Britain's best-loved model-making company, to reveal how they shrink mighty trains, planes and automobiles to create a new generation of miniature masterpieces. I did also promise that today is brought to you by the word Ferroequinologist. I was very excited to Google that today. The brighter ones amongst you already know this, but a ferroequinologist is another way of saying a rail fan, a rail buff, or a train spotter to you and me. And talking of spotting trains, I've just spotted Montana coming into the clearing, no doubt with a train set. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Montana Hoeron, head of brand, Hornby Hobbies. Wonderful. So what's very exciting is we're going to have the idea of a train set being at the epicentre of the Good Listening To Show, Stories of Distinction and Genius clearing. Hornby trains are part of the fabric of my growing up. And I know that you go way back when to somebody called Frank Hornby in 1901, please.
Yeah, that's correct. So in 2020, Hornby celebrated its official 100th anniversary. So that was a massive milestone for us. And, you know, Hornby's still going strong after all these years. We've got a huge, loyal and passionate customer base who have grown up with Hornby. And we're seeing more and more people getting into the hobby. What we're seeing now is a sort of more families getting into it and sort of taking on board model railways as a family hobby. It's not something that needs to be done solo. We're seeing a lot of children that are interested in it. And you know, it's changed so much over the years. No longer is it just a train running around a track. It's so much more than that. You know, creating a layout involves so many different elements, from laying grass, creating scenery, adding character and realism. So there is so much more to it now, and it's a really fun and exciting hobby.
And there are many famous people with really extraordinary train sets. Rod Stewart is my most famous example in my own head. I've read many times that he actually goes on tour with his train set. I don't know quite how he transports it. Maybe you know.
So I've never actually met or spoken to Rod Stewart, but I do know a lot about his railway fascination. I think a lot of what he does is based on sort of the US kind of vibe, whereas some of the more UK-based celebrity icons in the model railway industry are the likes of Pete Waterman and Jules Holland. We work quite closely with Pete Waterman. He's grown up with trains and model railways. Just a few years ago, he introduced an exhibition at Chester Cathedral based on a 64-foot layout. So pretty impressive. He saw a lot of families coming into that, a lot of children. And he's a real sort of big part of Hornby Model World, as is Jules Holland.
And who has the bigger train set of the two, Jules Holland or Pete Waterman?
God, well, I think that Pete's layout that he took to Chester Cathedral sort of beats Jules Holland, but equally they both have a real fascination and some amazing layouts. So yeah, they're just as good as one another.
Wonderful. And by the way, I've had one of Jules Holland's fellow keyboardists who often accompanies Jules Holland in the Good Listening To Show, a really wonderfully talented young chap called Tom Seals.
Oh, wow. Hello.
Well, he grew up with his childhood ambition of someday, Mum, I want to play with Jules Holland. And he made a wish when he was 10 years old and gave an envelope sealed in sellotape to his mum. And about 15 years later, his mum was able to give it back to him, and he'd forgotten, owned it. His dream had come true.
Oh, wow, amazing.
So it's my great pleasure then. And do you want to talk first of all about the new series coming out, which is what your whole day is about, imparting information to do with this. It's Hornby, A Model World Series 2. What can we look forward to and where can we watch it?
So Hornby Model World Series 2 is on Yesterday channel, Mondays at 8 p.m. People can also catch up on UK TV Play. So this series is 11 episodes, an hour long, and it goes behind the scenes at Hornby HQ and gives viewers a real insight into what goes into making models in miniature. And that's not only Hornby railway products, that's the likes of Scalextric, Airfix and Corgi. So viewers will get a real insight into what actually goes into the development, how they're manufactured, as well as speaking to various different guests within the multiple hobbies.
And all those wonderful childhood core brands, are they all under the umbrella of Hornby Hobbies?
Yes, yeah. So within Hornby Hobbies, we have not only Hornby, Scalextric, Airfix and Corgi, but we also have Humbrel. So that's our paint and arts and crafts brand. And we also have various international railway brands which relate to various countries within Europe. So we've got a whole host of amazing heritage brands with so much history and a whole sort of realm of passionate customers surrounding them.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And you're sort of describing the fabric of my childhood. I've been going sort of nom, 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 nom as you've been rolling off those brands. And I think, if I'm right in assuming, Frank Hornby, way back in 1901, had a patent or a patent from Meccano. So that's in the fabric somewhere as well.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. That's where it all started. You know, as a team here, we often reflect back on that and wonder what Frank Hornby would be thinking if he could see where Hornby is now. You know, we've gone through so many different changes, so many different eras, and Hornby is still going strong. You know, it's changed a lot since when it started. But yeah, there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot of new product in the pipeline, and we're constantly forward thinking to try and bring Hornby into an ultra modern era.
Wonderful. So at its core then, it is definitely a story of distinction and genius and longevity, and happy 120th anniversary for recent times as well. Yeah. So let's bring you into the structure of the Good Listening To show. It's going to be my absolute pleasure to curate you and Hornby Hobbies Limited, but the Hornby trains most importantly, on the train of thought that is the Good Listening To show. So it's going to be a clearing a tree, and then I shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. And then within the fabric of that, there's also going to be a cake, a couple of random squirrels, and a cheeky bit of Shakespeare as well. So it's all to play for. So we also have a really nice choice at this point. We can either find out the story behind the story being Montana Hoeron at Hornby, or we can make it all about Hornby, or a bit of both.
I'd go for a mix.
Let's go for a mix. So, what is a clearing like for you and models then? Where do you go to get clutter-free, inspirational and able to think?
So my go-to is, going on a run. That's my hobby. I find that getting out of the house, taking a step away from work, just breathing in fresh air, and sort of running back home with a clear mind really helps me to creatively think. I'm naturally a creative writer. That's my background. I've got a couple of degrees in writing. So I find just separating myself from what's going on day to day, which is normally quite heavy stuff, just helps me to breathe, think, and brainstorm. So quite often I'll get home from a run and sort of get straight to my notepad and get my pen, and I'll be making sort of notes on what I think we can do to sort of better the brand and also better myself as well.
So it's not just a side hustle. You're very much a writer alongside and a copywriter alongside the work we do for the brand side.
Yes, yeah. So I studied at BA and MA level creative and professional writing, particularly specialising in writing for children. So within Hornby, we have got a range of toys for children. And as part of that, we have what we call a Play Trains portal. And within that, we've got sort of character stories, which I was really honoured to write. So I've been able to incorporate my writing into work, which is nice.
And it's obviously a different brand is Thomas the Tank Engine, but it sounds like you've got a train of thought pertaining to your world of trains as well.
Yes, yeah, lots of trains of thoughts going on. Yeah, we have a range of characterised models, very different from Thomas. Obviously, Thomas is very, very successful in its own right. And we actually did once have the licence, but we've sort of moved on from that now, and we have got our own Hornby range of characterised models, which we hope will grow, develop, and help get children into the model railway hobby.
Lovely. Good point to go, which is my own impression of a train. Thanks very much. No extra charge. You're welcome. So we've got you in a running scape then. You've said you're based in Kent. And so are we running somewhere specifically geographically in Kent?
So we are based in Margate. So that's where Hornby HQ is. I don't live too far from where our HQ is. But yeah, we're right by the sea. Lots of creative people in the area. And yeah, it's a really lovely place to work. Many people that live in the area know Hornby so well because we've got a very iconic building that's been standing for a long, long time.
Lovely. So we don't have to be running to and from work. So just take me through a sort of a favourite run of yours, and then that's where we're going to base it.
Yep. So I live right by the sea. So it takes me about a mile to run to the sea. And then I tend to do 3 miles in one direction, 3 miles back, right by the cliffs. And I can see France sometimes if it's a nice day.
Lovely. And it sounds like you've either literally or metaphorically got a writing pad or an ideas pad, either very close to hand or with you as you run.
Yes. So my phone is always with me. Writing pads all over the house. And yeah, always stuff bubbling away up here.
There's something much more sense-evoking and pleasurable about writing stuff down as opposed to just making notes in your phone. I experience as well.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with writing notes down on my phone and then not going back to them. But if they're a notepad, I feel like it's a very different experience. Yes,
there's a sort of physical scribing that makes all the difference, I think.
It's almost like it's indented in your mind when you're writing it, whereas if you're typing it, it's a different kind of experience.
Yeah, a very different type of muscle memory. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to arrive now with a tree within your running scape clearing. And, there's a train set never far away, we're talking about metaphorically, but I'm now going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out. And this is where we're going to crunch along on a construct which is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you've had just today or 5 minutes to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, and then borrowed from the film. That's where the 2 random squirrels come in. Oh, squirrels, you know what never fails to grab your attention, and then a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know until you tell us. So over to you to crunch on your apples, please.
Perfect. So starting with what shaped me, I would definitely say family are up there. I've got a small family. I've got 2 sisters, a brother, and my mum. But I wouldn't be where I am today without them. I've grown up with a very supportive mum who has always sort of helped me get through obstacles in life. And we both share a very strong work ethic, which I think has really kind of helped me get to where I am today. I'm very career focused. Really lucky that I work for Hornby. So I've been here for almost 8 years now. And work and my career has also really shaped me to where I am today. I'm very, very grateful for all of the opportunities I've had at Hornby. I've worked across all of our brands, started off as an assistant and have gone through various different roles to get to where I am now. And that's really given me such a boost to keep on achieving and building myself and bettering myself. So, yeah, definitely family, having a strong work ethic, and combined within all of that, enthusiasm. So I find that just being enthusiastic and happy and bubbly really lifts me. And I'd like to think that ultimately that supports others as well. And then finally, I'd say that having a drive, having a focus to keep going forward, to keep taking the next step to bettering yourself, and also supporting others along the way.
I like the fact there's a sort of natural momentum always pulling you forward, whether that's running or laying down tracks, seeing what I'm there for the next move, see what I'm doing there.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's something that's special. And, well, for me personally, knowing that I've got something that I can move forward to, even if it's something as small as, tomorrow I've got a really important meeting, like taking that next step to get to that important meeting, and then taking the next step to carry out the actions on that meeting. I always try and focus on taking each step as it comes, but, seeing the overall aim.
Yes, so I love that. There's always a sort of future focus imperative in what you're pulling yourself towards.
Yes, exactly.
Lovely. So that was a very concise and very lovely answer to the 4 things that have shaped you.
Yeah.
And now we're going to go for 3 things that inspire you. Now, if there's any overlap, obviously just that's absolutely fine, but 3 things that inspire you, Montana.
Yep. So the first one I would definitely say is writing. As I mentioned, writing is my background. I've grown up having a real love for English, which is what led me to sort of study at university. And I just find that you can make magic and create adventure and journey through writing. And even now, I find that sometimes it's a struggle to have time to really invest in writing. But the one thing that I learned when I was at university is that you should always try and write something, even if it doesn't really mean anything, it doesn't really make much sense. Just write something, write how you've been feeling, write what your day was like. And I always find that helps me. I think it links back to what we were saying, just putting words down on paper, gives you a bit of a visualization and maybe helps you reflect on your mood or how you've been feeling within that day. So yeah, I think words are really, really powerful. And that's something that I feel really inspires me.
I love that it's about externalizing it as well, because one of the resilience strategies is to do something called doing practical things, which is often not in your head, but with your hands. So the idea of getting stuff out of your head onto the page is obviously very cathartic for you.
Yeah, I suppose it links in with really having a diary. Why do we have a diary? Why do we write about our day? What makes it important to us? And I think it's just a case of being able to dump out everything that's in your mind onto paper and then reflect on it when you feel you need to.
Chronicling as you go. I love that. That's a great inspiration. Just one thing I'd forgotten to ask you, or it occurred to me to ask you that I haven't yet. Are all your brothers and sisters, your siblings, are they all still local to you near Kent, or where are they now?
So 2 of them are. My brother's a carpenter. He lives close by. My youngest sister is at university. She wants to go into art and fashion. And then my other sister, she lives in London and she is a designer. So we're all relatively artistic and creative. And my mum has always been that same way as well.
And do you mind me asking, is your father still in the mix as well?
So there's quite a big backstory to this, but I'll try and give you the short version. So my father actually left my mum before I was even born. So never met him. He was an Australian. So I've got some Australian in me, but so I've never met my father, but it's not an issue. It's just my upbringing, and I don't really ever think about it that often, to be honest.
And in terms of a geographical fact, did he return to Australia? Is that where he is, as far as you know, on the planet?
Yes, as far as I know, he was working on the boats in the UK, and my mum and him sort of got along very well. I think he was possibly quite scared of the thought of having a child, which is why he sort of left and returned to Australia. I've grown up with my mum, and I think that's why we get along so well, because I've just spent my whole life with her, so we've got a very strong bond.
Lovely to hear. And so so I'm just being factual about the fact your siblings are half brothers and sisters, is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's right. And obviously I've got some Australian in me. My mum grew up in America, so she was actually born in Montana, hence my name. So yeah, I've got lots of different kind of countries in me, and yeah, although I've got a small family, we're very like tight knit and we've got a good bond.
Oh, by the way, talking of Montana, I loved the surname as soon as I realised what you're called, because I've just been all over the TV series Yellowstone recently. I don't know if you've seen it,
Yeah,
but it's
I haven't
all
seen
set.
that.
It's all set in Montana, and I don't even know if there are some glorious train journeys within Montana, but I'm sure there would be. There's lots of horse riding and beautiful mountainscapes of Montana, but that sort of evoked that for me when I first read your name. I had a sort of Scandinavian mix with Montana, America, even though you've said, no, it's Kent, but Australia.
There's also another series that's on, it's on Disney, but I think it's a Fox channel program called Big Sky, and that's based in Montana. So you've got the lovely views, national parks, wildlife. So yeah, another good watch.
And of course, Yellowstone is based in Montana as well. So all good. Wonderful. So just a little bit of extra story behind the story there. Lovely. So the second thing that influences you now?
So I would say brainstorming, which again kind of links in with the writing, but just having time to reflect on something and try and, build on it, expand on it. And, I've got all these sort of creative thoughts that sometimes can be quite overwhelming. So being able to really knuckle down on each one and sort of bring them to life through brainstorming is something that really inspires me.
And does that normally require others to help you brainstorm, or is that very much a personal, individual task?
Yeah, so I've got a team here at Hornby. So whenever we kind of come up with ideas, we tend to brainstorm together. If I'm sort of brainstorming something that's relating to my personal life or my house, then that's something that I would do on my own with my dog.
And you are head of brand, so how big is the branding team?
Yeah, so the brand is kind of split between marketing and development. So we've got a big development team who come under a development manager, and then we've got sort of my team who are more marketing based, creative based, and we kind of join forces together. So yeah, I'm very lucky to work with Catherine, Wendy, Sarah, Simon, and many others. But yeah, we're quite a creative sort of bubbly team.
That's a sort of a shout out to the Hornby squad there. Branded, fantastic. We could be up to now in terms of the structure. The third thing that influences you now?
So I would also include being challenged. So I feel like having a challenge really inspires me to better myself, to learn more about whatever it is I'm being challenged on, and to also just sort of strengthen myself personally in terms of my sort of personality and definitely my career. I know that things aren't ever easy. We're going to go through challenging times, and I feel like having these little challenges come up every now and again really strengthens you as a person and strengthens you in relation to whatever it is you're being challenged on. So I think challenges are good. And the final thing I'd say, which links in with what I've already mentioned, is running. Find running just really, really inspiring, and being able to sort of challenge myself to sort of hit a certain mile, and yeah, just put myself under a certain amount of pressure to get to a goal.
And has that ever extended to running marathon length races as well? Or?
Yeah, so I've done quite a few runs for Race for Life, and I've done a few half marathons, the Royal Parks half marathons in London. I've never gone as far as doing a full-on marathon though, so we'll see if that ever happens.
Well, it won't happen in my life. I know that I don't want to do that. I like to make tennis, but I know when to stop running. It's a lot shorter than 26 miles, let me assure you. Now we're up to, this is where, borrow from the film Up, this is where more squirrels come in. So what are the two monsters of distraction? What never fails to grab your attention? I'm predicting you might say model train sets, but that's me being facetious. You don't have to say that at all. So what are the two squirrels or monsters of distraction for you, Montana?
This is a really tricky question. I'm not sure. How would you answer that question?
Well, for me, rather sadly, it might be a ping pong table. I'm always going, oh, I'll always stop in my tracks to work out whether I can beat somebody or not.
Yeah.
So it's stuff that, or I love food, so it might be cake, which is coming up later. So stuff that just makes you always do a double take.
Yeah, so I think I would say Hornby train sets are definitely part of that. I feel like over the last 8 years, my life has been sort of revolved around trains and model railways. So if ever I see anything on TV or if I go to an event and I see railways, I'm always very, very quickly distracted. And although you've mentioned it already, I am a huge, huge cake fan. Anyone that knows me knows that I am absolutely 100 obsessed with cake.
Wow.
We've got a cafe on site here, and they make amazing cake. And this morning I saw this incredible Victoria Spartan fresh out of the oven. But I'm trying to be good, so I had to avoid getting any.
By the way, we are coming on to cake, and I've even got a little cake to tempt you with here. This is a sort of, I think it's a dog toy cake, and it looks quite right for where we're going. So I promise we can come on to your Victorious Buns of choice in a second. So anything else that never fails to stop you? Or do you feel you've covered that?
I'd go with cake and trains for now, yeah.
I like that we're going to reincorporate cake in a minute. That's good. And now, a quirky or unusual fact about you now we couldn't possibly know until you tell us.
Oh, well, I feel I've ruined it now because it was going to be how obsessed I am with cake.
It's coming in 3 times. Cake, cake, and more cake, please.
Yeah.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Yes, so that's good. You're obsessed with cake. That's good.
Yeah, any kind. I'll take any flavour.
Lovely. In which case, let's move seamlessly towards cake. We've shaken your tree. Now we stay in the clearing, which is still you running along the Margate coastline. So now we're going to talk about alchemy and gold. So when you're at purpose and in flow, Montana, what are you absolutely happiest doing?
Succeeding in work. So I am really work driven. I know some people might think that's crazy, but I get a real kick out of being able to succeed and achieve in what I'm doing. Like many, our lives revolve a lot around work. Spend a lot of time in the office. I spend a lot of time thinking about work. So succeeding in work is definitely one of them. Bettering myself and educating myself. So for instance, I'd always wanted to do a MA in creative writing. I didn't go straight from doing my BA into my MA. I actually took quite a big gap, and I studied that whilst I was working at the same time. So I think being able to learn and sort of just educate myself further sort of gives me a real big kick. And just supporting and listening, I find that that's a real important sort of a part of everything, really. I don't think
stretch to sort of mentoring your team and giving them a good listening to as well, and being really present with people's own development in how you help others.
Yes, definitely. So I'm lucky enough to have a supportive manager, and sort of in reference to that, I like to be able to support my team. We all have a really sort of strong work relationship, and we have lots of things in common outside of work as well. And I just think that being able to listen and support people helps them not only in a work environment, but it can also help on a personal level. So I feel like that's a very sort of important part of life in general. Supporting and listening, giving advice and giving feedback, just trying to help people, really.
And do you get to travel the world at all the various toy fairs that happen? So you go and actually check the brand is in situ and in place?
I don't quite get to travel the full world, but I am lucky. I get to go to various model railway shows in the UK. As I mentioned, just been in Germany for a toy fair, which was a really, really great event. I've been a few times now. So, yes, we do get to go and travel. We get to go and sort of fly the flag for Hornby, and sort of promote the brand to sort of various audiences.
Well, I am so grateful that I have learned the word ferroequinologist, as I've already mentioned once today. That is a real fan or train buff. Talking of which, there is the wonderfully named Francis Bourgeois. I think you pronounce it like that. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Francis Bourgeois, I think.
Bourgeois, who's really known as Luke Magnus Nicholson. And I'm intrigued by him because I know that he's the sort of the TikTok sensation that's gone famous as a ferroequinologist. He's also got the namesake in his moniker, his other name, which is a court painter to King George III, which is the different Bourgeois.
Yeah.
Is he someone that you've met as well? Has he been involved with Hornby stuff?
So I haven't met him. I know that he is very passionate and interested in various of our HST train packs. And watching his videos, I can see what trains he's interested in. I know he's been featured on various different TV programmes, and we've actually been involved in providing some of our Hornby products to feature in these TV shows. We did speak to him very early on in his career, and since then it's been very, very difficult to get hold of him. So we haven't had any direct contact. I would be very open to it, so if he's watching, or if anyone else is watching who knows him, please get in touch. But yeah, he is a fascination, and I think he's definitely, through his sort of enthusiasm, promoted model railways in a completely different way, which will hopefully sort of strengthen the model railway hobby.
I mean, according to Wikipedia, he's 22. I didn't know very much about him, but that could be an old entry. I'm not sure. But he's certainly, a really good way to reconnect the future of the whole world of models and make it relatable to young people as well.
Yeah, I think he's just really shown that it's okay to be a model railway enthusiast. So there's always been this connotation with Hornby that model railways is for men that are of a certain age, and that's kind of stuck. But really, Hornby is a hobby that is for anyone, males, females, any ages. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about running a train on a track. It's so much more than that now. So I feel like what he's done is promoting the model railway and railways in general in a completely different way. So yeah, we do see a lot of families and children getting into the hobby. And I think that what he's done and the way that he's being promoted is definitely sort of helped towards that.
Sure thing. We could now be at the point of awarding you with a cake, please. Hurrah! So, we know you like cake because you've said the word. This is brought to you by the word cake by Montana. So you did say Victoria Sponge, but you can choose cake of choice or metaphorical cake. So which one are you going to go for?
Oh, I love all of them. Can I listen to all of them?
Have all cakes known to man, woman and child. Have all cakes.
You're so generous.
You're going to get a monumental cherry on the cake now. This is the final multi-layered storytelling metaphor. This is stuff like, what is a favourite inspirational quote that's always given you succour and pulled you towards your future?
Yeah. So this probably sounds like it doesn't link in with what I've said so far, but this is a quote that every time I hear it really inspires me. So, doing nothing often leads to the very best of something, which is a Winnie the Pooh quote. And every time I hear it, it makes me realise that actually you don't need to be doing something all the time. It's okay to take a break and sit back, because when you're doing that, that's when things start going on up here and you can think more creatively. I'm one of those people that I like to have sort of something in between my teeth at all times, and I like to be sort of bettering myself and thinking of what I'm going to do next weekend and next month, and that's it on a work basis and a personal basis. But what I've really learned over the years is that you don't need to be too hard on yourself. You need time to sit back, think, reflect, and sometimes when you do that, these big, amazing ideas come to the forefront, and sometimes that's all you need, just time to do nothing.
Lovely. Just replant that lovely, delicious, succinct quote from Winnie the Pooh again.
Doing nothing often leads to the very best of something.
A delightful bit of A.A. Milne there. How lovely. And now we're going to talk about what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given.
So I would say, and again, this might sound like it's very different from how I've been talking, but just don't take life too seriously. We're all on a journey. Every one of us is on a different journey, and just don't take things too seriously in life. Just take it all as it comes. I have to remind myself of this all the time because I do often get stuck in my own head a lot of the time. So I have to take that step back and just think, breathe, don't worry, everything will be okay in the end. Just take things as they come. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
And this could feel very much the same, but just a slightly different sort of slant now. What notes, help or advice might you proffer to a younger version of yourself starting out?
So I would say work hard, be consistent, and just be a nice person. We don't know what people are going through. As an example, I'll quite often go into a shop and I might see someone who looks really miserable or might serve me in a miserable way. And I always just smile at them because I always think that person might be going through something really traumatic. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I just think that smiling is really infectious. And if we did more of that, we might be in a happier place.
Lovely answer. We're ramping up to a bit of Shakespeare, but just before we get there, there's a new construct in this show which is called Pass the Golden Baton. So having now experienced 3/4 of this from within, who in your network would you think would most appreciate, like, or enjoy having the baton passed to them to be given a good listening to in this construct?
So I would say my boss, who many people probably know in the model railway industry. So he's called Simon Kohler. He's worked in the industry and with Hornby for 50 odd years. He's very well respected in the industry and has a huge amount of knowledge. I think that people would be interested in hearing what he has to say.
And just say his name one more time, Simon Kohler.
Simon Kohler, yeah.
And I'm assuming that'd be Khohler rather than Coca-Cola.
Yeah, you got it.
So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to tell him that you're passing the golden baton on to him.
I will do.
By the way, rather comically, about 2 weeks ago, when this was the new construct, I Googled relay batons, found a gold one, and 5 days later I had Roger Black, MBE, the Olympic athlete, who only got silver in the 4x100 relay, and I was able to award him with Olympic gold by finally giving him the gold relay baton.
Oh, wow.
Just thought I'd share that with you. Okay, so and now, inspired by Shakespeare now, and all the world stage and all the men and women merely players, this is about legacy now. And when all is said and done, how would you and or Hornby, do you think, most like to be remembered?
Fine. The girl who loves her dog, Kate, and always smiled.
Boom. Love that.
It doesn't always need to be complicated, does it?
No, I love that. The simplicity and the wonderment and the innocence of that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we've got Hornby Model World Series 2 coming up. Anything else you'd like to say about that before we say thank you very much?
So it's just full of so much exciting updates on the brand, on the industry, so many lovely guests that were a part of it. Obviously, it's on Yesterday Channel, Mondays, 8 p.m. Catch up on UK TV Play. And also you can watch the first series as well if you hadn't watched that already.
I love the fact that it's messing with people's heads from a timeline point of view. It's on Yesterday tomorrow.
I know. So
when you're at Sunday. Did you see Yesterday? No, I'm going to watch it tomorrow. Maybe I'll watch it next week. Who knows? But playing with timelines. And who are the most... Who would be the people we'd most heard of that are going to be on that series and featured?
So Pete Waterman, as I mentioned, Jules Holland also, various different people from within Hornby, various different guests. There's a whole host of names from within the industry and various icons as well. And so, yeah, any details with regards to Hornby Railways can be found on hornby.com. Be sure to check it out. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube and TikTok under official Hornby, and YouTube is specifically Hornby Model Railways.
Wonderful. So, as this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, stories of distinction and genius, which Hornby has a long legacy of since circa 1901, is there anything else you'd like to say, Montana?
I would just like to say thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been lovely talking to you. Very, very lovely, and I've really enjoyed it.
You've been listening to the Good Listening To show here on UK Health Radio with me, Chris Grimes. Oh, it's my son.
If you've enjoyed the show, then please do tune in next week to listen to more stories from the clearing.
If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, then please do so. There's also a dedicated Facebook group for the show too. You can contact me about the programme, or if you'd be interested in experiencing some personal impact coaching with me, care of my Level Up Your Impact programme, that's chris@secondcurve.uk. On Twitter and Instagram, it's
@ThatChrisGrimes.
So until next time, from me, Chris Grimes, from UK Health Radio, and from Stan,
To your good health.
and goodbye.